Welcome to Phono Stage, where we connect you with the music that we love.
I'm the Brown Bandit. You can call me Bandit. Welcome to the show.
And I'm the mischievous one. You can call me Mischief. Today is our Talking All That Jazz Vol.2, or our 2010s edition. So we're pretty much looking at jazz. I got to pick this time. So I conveniently actually do listen to a lot of newer jazz, the 2010s. So anything between 2010 and 2019. So just 2 years ago. So you're getting some really, really, really new stuff, which really actually kind of span all over the place.
And you want to start, or you want me to start?
You can start.
All right. Like Mischief said, we're covering the 2010s. So I'm going to start with an album that came out in 2012. And it's by a gentleman named Gergory Porter. Gergory Porter is this big, imposing looking man. He's always got a cool hat on. He's got this great, sexy voice.
He really does.
He does. It's like it puts you at ease. He's like, come on in, sit down. We're going to listen to some music.
He's like Barry White. He's not. It doesn't sound anything like Barry White.
No, it's that feeling of just at ease.
Yeah, and
right?
This album was with saying that about his vocals.
Yeah. They're liquid. They're liquidy.
He's singing you lullabies.
Yeah.
Right?
Well played.
Right?
I don't have a hat on today, but hats off to that sentiment. Yeah, definitely. Just a little bit about Gergory Porter. He was born November 4th, 1971. He's aged at 49 right now, so who knows, maybe he's going to come out with a 50th album or something like that. Genres that he covers, generally speaking, are, jazz, blues, soul, and gospel. He's a singer-songwriter and actor, which I didn't know. His instruments are his voice. And he's been active since 98 to the present. He's on Blue Note, which is, as you know, one of my favorite labels, as well as Motema and Membrane. So he was born in Sacramento, California, and raised in Bakersville, California, where his mom was a minister, and he's got several siblings. And his mother was a large influence on his life, having encouraged him to sing in the church at an early age, which is the gospel background, right? Father issues, so on and so forth. In his words, his father, was straight up absent. So it was his mom that raised him. His mother died at a very early age. He was only 21, and that's really affected him going forward, kind of thing. And actually, on one of the songs on the album that I'm going to talk about, which is the second album, there's a song called Mother Song, and that's my go-to track on there. One of my go-to tracks on there. If I'm putting on the album, that's the one I'll gravitate towards first, and then I'll kind of, if I'm flipping through it, kind of thing. Yeah, he received really, really great reviews and critical reception on his first album. The second album is always the one. Is it going to be as good as that? When you have that big hit of a first album, is the second one going to compare and live up to the first one, right? The second album's called Be Good, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. It came out February 15th, 2012. The studio it was recorded in was Systems 2 Recording Studio in Brooklyn, New York. Again, it's a jazz album, and this time the label that he recorded it on was Motema. The producer was Brian Backus. Now, the reception it got, I love what John Fordham of The Guardian said, and that is, it's balanced plenty of fizzing fast music and jazz acrobats with the honey toned of Nat King Cole. And that's what we were implying before. He's got this liquidy smoothness to his voice that just puts you at ease and draws you in. A lot of this is self-penned, if not all of it, and it operates at that smoldering. He's a smolderer. There's quite a few love songs on it. One's called Mother Song, and that's his, you were saying lullaby, right? And that's his lullaby about his mom. And I just think that's lovely. For all you mama's boys and girls out there, I happen to be a mama's boy in my old age. daring in the sense of the lullabies really showcases back again that smooth voice of his kind of thing, right?
Which accompanies his playing really well.
Yeah. Well, the players really well, right? It's tender. Doesn't matter if he's singing a faster paced track or a slower paced track. It always seems very tender and honest and forthright, like he's singing right to you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. With this album, again, with the whole lullaby bit, he's singing to you, and it sounds like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like he's singing to you.
I think this album is just a perfect blend of enough kind of more mellow tracks and then a little bit more up-tempo stuff. Or, a couple of tracks started off kind of like bling bling. His voice is his bling bling.
Yes.
Kind of thing, right? Mother Song, of course, I had mentioned. On My Way to Harlem is a standout track as well. He's won Grammys. He's done it, kind of thing. So again, in this album, it's talking about his life experiences, of course.
Yeah.
Again, inspired by Motown, jazz, soul, R&B, gospel, and you hear it all come through with his voice and in his vocals. The horn section and his band in general, really, it's like a sing-song thing, that call and answer thing. They play so well together, his horn section and him kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, he'll call, they'll answer. They'll call, he'll answer kind of thing. I love that. Of course, his African-American roots really show through. I think this next comment is really great too. He sounds commercial, like his voice is sellable kind of thing, but it doesn't take away from his technique kind of thing, where sometimes people's technique, that person's got a really great voice, but they can't sell it necessarily, right? It's not going to be eaten up by the general mass of people kind of thing. This guy has both. General radio listeners could be drawn in to his vocals, even though his technique is so beautiful. There's no strain ever. You know what? It kind of and take this with a big grain of salt, reminds me slightly of Adele. When you watch Adele, for instance, the Royal Albert Hall concert, she's standing there with this deadpan face and this rainbow is coming out of her mouth. And it doesn't even look like she's trying, versus other people who look like they're in pain. And there's times where Gregory Porter just looks so at ease, or even sounds so at ease, kind of thing. So anyway, let's, I'll wrap that up. Just go out and check this album. It's called Be Good. It is good. Get some lullabies in your life. What do you got for us next, man?
So for my first album for our 2010s, it was also released in 2012.
Yep.
Mine is by a band called Antibalas, and the album is also called Antibalas.
I'm sorry, I'm rocking out because... Yeah, go ahead, mister. What a great album.
Antibalas is an American Brooklyn-based Afrobeat band. Now, Antibalas is Spanish for bulletproof.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And this band was formed in 98.
I'll also say the recording of it sounded old school. It sounds old.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It sounds like they're in a room together.
When I first heard it, I did think it was like older kind of Afrobeat jazz. But
sounds like they're on the floor together.
Yeah, but then
like they're recorded on the floor together.
I need to go get a sweater. This place is damn cold.
Okay. What we're going to talk about right now,
What? No, stop that.
ladies and gents, is the creaking of these chairs. Come on, do it with me. Antibalas.
Now the band has said to be modeled after Eddie Polomir's Harlem River Drive Orchestra, and Eddie is a Grammy Award winning pianist, and it's also to be said to be modeled after Fela Kuti's Africa 70 band. And
I really connected with that. Well, I'm a big fan of Fela Kuti, but I could hear that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, no, for sure. It's the Afrobeat, right?
Yeah.
It's Fela Kuti's Africa 70 band, right?
Yeah.
And Fela Kuti is a Nigerian multi-instrumentalist. The band was recruited to give some sonic truth and realism to the original productions of Fela Kuti, which is literally what you just said, is how you felt, you could hear that and you could feel it.
Even recording-wise, it's, sounds like they're on the floor together. It sounds like an old-school recording.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was so new. I thought because it holds true to that era.
Yeah, and that genre, definitely.
But obviously the production is a lot newer.
Yeah,
that's it, right? It holds true to that musical. That it shows that musical art form can thrive now. It shows that 1970s Nigeria is still relevant and
even more so now.
Yeah,
with what's going on worldwide, North America, take that as you will, people out there. But it holds true to that.
So even though they are considered an Afrobeat-based jazz band, the musical architecture and language also incorporates a lot of other musical elements, right? So their music, album to album, can span between funk, dub. The idea, which I believe also follows Fela Kuti's, I don't know what I want to say here, in his footsteps, let's just say.
Yep.
The band kind of created crossroads for a much needed type of no expiration date kind of protest music.
Yeah.
The band tries to touch on everything from social class struggles, being deprived of rights and privileges, financial exploitation, misguided law enforcement, and unsatisfying materialism, which is what this album does from beginning to end. Every single song has some kind of message, right? And that they're trying to convey just through their music. So there are lyrics on this album. They convey all these messages not only through their music, but there are some lyrics on some of the songs. So the first song that I was introduced to was Dirty Money.
That conveys it all.
I'm sorry.
That's a political public. Yeah.
It's a big message, right? Obviously, like we just said, Dirty Money falls under that, one of those subjects. And this song feels like it fits the context that it's almost like crumbling Wall Street. So the video, I don't know if you've seen the video. So the video, to convey that message of dirty money, actually shows it by a man being tossed coins, but he's drowning.
All right.
Right? So yeah, it also shows, the scene also shows he's also trying to grab onto a rope, like he's breaking, and the rope is made out of bills. But he keeps falling, and he keeps falling off the ledge, and he's just drowning, and there's just all this. It's just to show that money doesn't really help. For the most part, makes things worse.
No matter how much you reach for.
Yeah. And the music, the musicality of it is like almost this like arousing, slinky kind of demonstration that really shows an update to the Afrobeat scene.
Yeah.
And it switches. The music switches between which I'm a huge fan of. I have my own drum set, so I love anything percussion, to be really honest with you. Which is why I'm really excited to talk about one of your albums. There's this really tight switch between this chattery percussion that is almost equally, in the rhythm of it, almost is equal to the piano work. And then you have, again, everything's really, and I know you like to use this word a lot, everything's really syncopated.
Yeah.
Right? Everything's really synced up. Everything's like really really quick.
Yeah.
Because there's a message that's trying to be conveyed. The importance of just surviving and the struggle of it. To make it to the top, you need to do the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're just gonna fall behind and fail. And it's just like, that's not how life should be. And they show that through the music as well, especially with the punchy brass notes and the sax solo that's in it.
That's frenetic.
They have a message, and it's like, we're trying to show that this shit's still going on. If anything, it's worse.
It's a never-ending cycle.
The second song that I ended up falling in love with off this album, after I found this song, I was like, I love this song. I fell in love with this song so quickly and so hard that I was like, I need to listen to the rest of the album. So the second song that I ended up falling in love with, that also has a really big message, is the Ratcatcher. And it's actually supposed to be a fable about a man who sets up a trap to capture rats, but ends up snaring everything but what he intends to catch. So he ends up putting down more traps, or bigger traps. He inevitably corners... You actually see this... What this is? You see this in, like, cartoons, right? A cartoon character is trying to catch a mouse in the house. So he's just putting down traps everywhere, and then he ends up just cornering himself. And now he has to try and figure out a way of getting out of his own trap.
Yeah.
The Ratcatcher is a track about an ongoing war against anything with an abstract concept, like the war on terror or the war on drugs. Something that you essentially feel like no matter how much you're moving forward, you're like falling back 2 steps.
Yeah.
Right? Even the idea of no matter how many rats you catch, there's still 100 more that will follow behind them.
Yep.
Right? As soon as the big guy gets taken out, whoever was next in line just takes over everything.
You know, getting that chore. You've done that chore, there's 100 more that are going to follow. Like, it just covers a lot of different aspects, kind of thing.
Yeah.
In life in general.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, here's the part about this album and about this band that I love, is they have such a strong message. They have such an important message that is being inherited, right? They're just like, let's do our own thing, but let's do it in honor of, in a way of saying it, in honor of him. This whole album is so danceable.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to actually add, yeah.
Right? The whole album is such a fun listen. And it's funny because that's why I had to listen to the rest of the album.
Yeah, yeah. Right? on that segue, being danceable, my wife lived, in Brooklyn for many years, and she was a bartender at one point, and went to Alvin Ailey, ex-professional dancer, and the band came into the bar and ended up hiring her for one of their videos all those years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so yes, it's danceable kind of thing. Aside from the messages that you've just stated and that they portray, I just like to shake my ass to their stuff, aside from everything else. That's what drew me in as well. Like, I want to shake I had a problem sitting on the couch and just listening, moving.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard for this entire album. It's a lot of fun. It's the Afrobeat.
It wasn't about reference listening for me. It was about musicality. Yeah. We're always looking for that, man. Yeah, great reference. That sounds great. This made me want to shake my ass.
Anyway, that's Antibalas and the album Antibalas.
For my second pick, and that was such a great segue as far as how we're doing this, I'm going to talk about the third album from an artist known as Michael Eugene Archer, who was born on February 11th, 1974. Vintage, amazing year, people out there. Better known as his stage name, which is D'Angelo. And you know that.
Yes. I didn't know.
Yeah. That D'Angelo, his Voodoo album's that's my top R&B album of all time. You can put that on at any time. However, we're going to talk about his third album, and we waited 14 years in between albums. We'll talk about that a little bit more. The album is called Black Messiah, and it's by D'Angelo and the Vanguard. You know, he's associated with neo soul and R&B and funk, hip hop, soul, progressive soul, but I lump him into jazz as well because jazz is ever changing and it brings forth new ideas, and it's an American institution, as is D'Angelo. I don't have D'Angelo in my record collection lumped in with other artists. He's in my jazz section, and that's high praise from me. Take that how you will.
I feel like the albums, or maybe song by song, is how I would put him.
Yeah.
Right? So he's just...
Yeah, he covers a lot.
Yeah, he's just a musician. He's just an artist. He's amazing at what he does.
Yeah.
And he's the type of person that could bring a very specific sound to each song rather than just a flavor of a mix of flavors.
And yet it still sounds like him.
Yes.
So, you know, born in Richmond, Virginia, taught himself piano as a child. I think his brother was 10 and he was 3, and his brother walked in and D'Angelo sitting there playing chords. So after Voodoo came out, he didn't want to be this sex symbol, right? And if you ask the general population, hey, do you know D'Angelo Voodoo? The guy that was nude in his video. That's what a lot of people will say. The untitled video. So he's now being kind of in that pigeonholed into like sex star as well. And he didn't want to have anything to do with that. And then he went down the road of, you know, drug abuse and alcohol abuse, and almost lost his life, I believe, in a car accident. And so back to it, we waited 14 years for this new album. Now, Voodoo touched on personal relationships and things of that nature kind of thing. Black Messiah comes, here's where the segue comes. It is a protest album. It is a flippin' protest album, and it came just in time. You know, there were such bad delays between albums, and then Black Messiah comes out in December 2014. I pre-ordered 6 copies. Didn't even think about it twice. Ordered 6 copies. Here, you need. When I got them, I kept 2. One went to my daughter, one went to me when Jazz was still with us, and the other ones I gave away. You need this in your life. Hadn't even listened to it. You need this. Okay, that's a lie. I've listened to it. You need this. You need this. This must be in your record collection to very specific people, maybe that hadn't heard of D'Angelo or that were big fans. Either way, I handed out his album. I hope you watch this at some point in your dear life, D. Anyway, came out in December 2014, and you know, there was a lot of teasers. Questlove is a producer and plays on it. So there was these little snippets and samples of songs coming out. The other thing I want to say is, again, we waited so long for this album. Me and my wife actually got to see this live. He came to Toronto, played at Rebel. It's a small little venue. What a show, man. What a flippin' show. So we did kind of a best of D'Angelo, and then he'd intersperse in the set were Black Messiah songs. We were like, what the hell is that? What is that? Like, just such musicianship by the band, the Vanguard, as well as D'Angelo. The song that just attracted me was Really Love. Beautiful, beautiful little ditty.
Out of your picks, this album, I didn't realize how many D'Angelo songs that I've come across that are off of this album.
Oh,
right. I was just like, okay, wait, no, I do know this song. Okay, let me go to the next song, and I gotta remember that it's on this album. Like,
yeah,
this album was this album for me for a listen was very D'Angelo, obviously, but based off of Voodoo and stuff like that.
Yep.
But this one, because of the message, it was hard.
It's a tough listen, man.
It was hard because again, I have just randomly come across D'Angelo songs, so to actually listen to an album from beginning to end, when the first song came on, it's hard.
And those first 2 are like,
right. And I was just like, this is not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
right?
People are thinking Voodoo still, or Brown Sugar for that matter.
Yes.
Brown Sugar's
Yeah.
lovey-dovey, Voodoo's about personal relationships, breakups, love, whatever. This is, again, protest music.
Yeah.
Black Messiah won Best R&B Album that year. Okay. Really Love won Best R&B Song and was nominated for Record of the Year. And a side note, Black Messiah, Beyonce's self-titled album, Run the Jewels' first album, Kendrick Lamar's Pimp a Butterfly in 2014 and 15, are noted as laying the groundwork down for the politically charged releases that happened the following year in 2016.
So basically all those...
They were forerunners too. Everything that, all that protest music that started happening in earnest that we heard in 2016. So Rihanna's album, Kanye West's album, Beyonce's Formation, so on and so forth, right? I like how this writer put it. Black Messiah is a study in controlled chaos. 1,000 Deaths on that album is crazy sounding. It's busy, it's in your face kind of thing, right? It arrives late and fierce. What does it say here? As though the band has unfurled its crunchy, lumbering vamp just long enough to violently snatch it out from under us. There's funk rock on this album. There's hints of jazz and neo soul, of course, and R&B, and it pulls stuff from its predecessors as far as albums and artists go, and unites them all. One song might sound funkadelic, another song might sound like Prince and the Revolution, but yet it's D. You said it, you touched on it earlier. When it's D'Angelo touching it kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's D. He's got his own sound kind of thing.
Because between this album and the previous ones, the feel is completely different.
Yeah.
Now for D'Angelo, I was used to his Voodoo stuff and Brown Sugar and stuff like that. So when I hit play, now don't get me wrong, some of the songs on this album, like you said, do still have the R&B soul.
Absolutely, but the message is different.
The sexiness is still there, right? But song 1 comes out heavy, but I was not expecting that.
This album took a 10-year span, a whole decade to produce kind of thing, right? Just what you said. There are songs on there that are oddly familiar, right? Because it's D'Angelo and it's got that R&B flavor or that neo-soul or that jazzy kind of funk. But it's still unprecedented because, again, what you said, the beginning of the album, it's like, okay, you're in for a roller coaster. I got something to say about what's going on in our times right now, and I'm going to say it. And you go listen. Ooh, I like how this is put. Black Messiah is a slow simmering gumbo, finely boiled over. It's not a sneaky attack. It comes at you and then it eases back and then it comes at you again and then it boils over. It's amazing. To wrap up about Black Messiah by D'Angelo Mischief, I'm actually going to read verbatim something that Pitchfork, it was written on Pitchfork, and I'm in full agreement about this, and this is what was said. Black Messiah is about finding something to hang on to in dire times, which we are going through right now, of course, soldiering through the infuriating insanity of oppression with a support system in tow. It's about people rising up in Ferguson, and in Egypt, and in Occupy Wall Street, and in every place where a community has had enough and decides to make a change happen. Black Messiah is not one man, it's a feeling that collectively we are all that leader. And sometimes it only takes one man out there, people, as we all know. So again, this album may have taken over a decade to show face again, but it turns out that D'Angelo was right on time with this. And again, just led to other protest music shortly thereafter by there's no similar artists. That's what I gotta say about what do you got for your second album, Maiysha?
So, for my second pick, I'm going to change things up a little bit. Just a little bit. Brought up this man on the last episode of Talkin All That Jazz, the last volume. He is an American trumpeter, 1926, born, passed in 1991. We have declared him, as of others and the rest of the world globally, he is one of the forefathers of jazz.
Yep.
For sure. He has been paired up with Robert Glasper, American pianist, who has said to have covered bridges musically and artistically between different genres.
Yep.
So the album I am now going to talk about is Everything's Beautiful, which is basically Robert Glasper getting a hold of a couple Miles Davis recordings.
Yeah.
Robert Glasper, if you don't know who that is, he has won 4 Grammy Awards and received 9 nominations spanning across 8 different categories. Everything Beautiful was released in 2016, and it is a beautifully crafted collection, blending a diverse group of master takes and outtakes from across an incomparable Miles Davis Columbia catalog.
Yeah.
And he basically takes it and Robert Glaspers it up.
Yeah, runs with it.
The album has an impressive lineup of contemporary artists and musicians. With Robert Glasper in there, he creates an original interpretations of these Miles Davis recordings.
And I'm a huge fan of most of the artists that he's paired up with.
I would have to say the same thing. I'm a fan of most of them.
Some of them I just didn't know, but I mean,
That's fair.
King, Erykah, Badu, Coyote Hiatus, so on and so forth. Just awesome artists, right?
For sure. And the fact that this was his what he imagined.
Yeah.
Right? To not only show homage to Miles Davis and keep true to those original recordings, because he doesn't really do much. He didn't fuck with them that much. Right?
No, he added to.
Right? He was just like he respected
and on
Miles
top
Davis,
of yeah.
Right? For sure. But just like you mentioned, some of the artists that have been that are featured on this album, Erykah Badu, like you mentioned, Bilal, I think.
I hadn't thought of Bilal in years. So
Right?
that was cool
Bilal,
to see. Yeah.
So Ladisi's one, and like you mentioned, King. Then there's British soul singer Laura Vula.
Yeah.
And hip hop producer Rashad Smith. There's also, like you mentioned, Hiatus
Coyote. Yep.
Right. Then there's rapper singer Ponte, rapper producer Illa J, veteran jazz guitarist John Schofield,
It was amazing.
who actually performed in Miles Davis's band. He was a member, and Stevie Wonder,
Which that was a nice surprise at the end of the album. Too,
I agree. I was literally looking for the words, but that's it. It was a delight. Almost.
A delightful delight.
It was
a double delight.
It was a delightful surprise. So Glasper has said that his process for assembling this album was to stay as organic as possible, but guided by voices, suggestions, serendipity, and on one occasion, he started crate digging again.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's really awesome.
Also,
if it leads you to crate digging, that's great. You're searching for
after being handed gold,
Miles
Davis gold, to go let's see what else I can.
Yeah. And I think that shows also in who he picked to be on the album. Definitely.
Yes.
It's so varied and wonderful.
Yes, but even though he's holding on, he gets a hold of these Miles Davis recordings, and he's trying to add his own flavor to it, and he's adding all these artists and other musicians. He also mentioned is he doesn't want it to just be some kind of remix record.
Yeah.
So you're not listening.
No, you want to hear new material.
Yeah. Right. You want to, but he doesn't want to show you this new Miles Davis material in just all his way kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? He tries to stay true and show homage to Miles Davis.
Yep.
So his idea was to show how Miles Davis has inspired people to make new art, right? So it's like, let's take some Miles Davis stuff, and instead of creating our own thing using it, let's show homage and let's just add, as if, I guess in a way of saying it, like as if he was actually part of the process.
Yeah.
Right? So the first thing I'm going to talk about is Maiysha. So Long is the name, and that's the song featuring Erykah Badu, which I was really excited to hear because I'm a huge fan of Erykah Badu.
It was very chill, or is very chill.
Yes.
Laid back.
So it delivers the original lyrics over Robert Glasper's playing, and a sample of Miles Davis' performance that's found on the album Get Up With It, which is, this song's wicked. And she does such a beautiful performance too.
Yeah.
So there's that song, which is wicked listen. The second song that I want to bring up, or make a point to check out off this album, was Milestones.
That's actually, that was a song that, or is a song that myself and my daughter, it's one of our go-to Miles songs that we listen together. Milestones, the original, obviously.
So this is a beautiful cover by Glasper. Yeah, it proves that he doesn't need Miles Davis's performances, his playing, from that tape vault in order to create some valid interpretations of Miles Davis's performances, because he himself is a very talented and very, very, very good performer. Then you have the song with Fonte, where he raps over a Ninth Wonder production.
Yeah, Ninth Wonder's dope.
In Violets. Allows vocal performance on Ghetto Walking. His phrasing and register leaps animate almost like a ghetto walk. Strut. Yeah. Right? So it's the groove is actually built off of a Miles Davis cut from 1969.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
The DC's voice absolutely delivers on I'm Leaving You, a song which also put the spotlight on the guitar work of Schofield.
Yeah.
So it's a good, very beautifully put together and structured and arranged compilation album.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like it's not a compilation album because it's very Miles Davis and very Robert Glasper focus.
Yeah.
Right? And then it ends off with Right On Brother, which was Stevie Wonder. Now this is what I loved about it. Out of all of the songs, in my opinion, this song specifically with Stevie Wonder, it was a wicked mix of all three. As separate artists coming together and creating something. It was almost like you knew who delivered what, or who added what to this song. Mm-hmm. You could hear it from beginning to end. Because I was curious to see what Stevie Wonder was going to bring, and I thought it was going to be a very big vocal performance, but it's not. It's you hear the Stevie Wonder flavors,
the funk,
the funk, right? The funk, the soul. He brings that
or that groove,
to it. This album was a dope find because I was an accident.
As did I, and forgot about it. People were posting about it. You know, I play a lot of vinyl apparently. Yeah, thanks for the reminder on this one. And again, what really made me gravitate back to it, and back then when I first heard it last year, was just the artists that were on it, the newer artists that were on it. You know, King is a very underrated, unknown group out of LA. And then, of course, Hiatus Coyote. Yeah. We talked about them in a past episode, I want to say. They were part of that resurgence now of acid jazz movement kind of thing. I love them. I just love them. So yeah, I really, it was a great lesson. Thanks, Mischief. My third and final, good segue, Mischief. I'm going to talk about a gentleman, Dave Holland, who also played with and for Miles Davis.
Yes.
You know, he's got a career spanning 5 decades. He is a jazz double bassist. but he's lived in the States for over 40 years. And his work ranges from pieces of solo performance to big band, as well as he owns his own record label called Dare 2, which he launched in 2005. Dave Holland was born in Wolverhampton, England, and again taught himself how to play stringed instruments beginning at 4 on the ukulele, then graduating to guitar and later the bass guitar, and then moving up to double bass. And he's one of those people that quit school at an early age to go and pursue his career, kind of thing, right?
Good.
Good. Stay true to thyself.
Well, yes, I was gonna say
stay in school, kids.
But good, he didn't.
Yes, for us and for him. Years later, after graduating to jazz, because he was pursuing a pop career, after seeing an issue of Downbeat, which was this famous magazine back then, where Ray Brown had won the critics' poll for best bass player, Holland went to a record store and bought a couple of LPs featuring Brown, backing pianist Oscar Peterson. Go Canada. And, within a week, Holland traded his bass guitar for a double bass and began practicing with the records that he'd bought. In addition, he was also drawn to bassists Charles Mingus and Jimmy Garrison. So there's a whole slew of information because he's had such a long career, but I'll just say that, he was with Miles Davis and Philly Joe Jones, who both heard him at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in England. And, the following day, Herbie Hancock took him to the club and his 2 years with Davis began. So that was, I think, shortly after Miles Davis' second great quintet with Herbie and all those guys, right? Then he went through, in the 70s, he was on a label called ECM. And it's a great label, and I really have to be in the mood to listen to most ECM stuff.
Okay.
It's busier, in my opinion. Then in the 80s, he was working with his first quintet. And then in the 90s and 2000s, he was with Joe Henderson, and he did this tribute to a Miles Davis album called Porgy and Bess, which is one of his, I think, top 3 selling albums. We'll keep kind of blew out of that. Numerous awards and honors and all that kind of stuff. However, today, what we're going to talk about is an album that came out in 2019, and it's called Good Hope. It's a trio of people. It's Zakir, Hussain, who's on tablas. Yes!
Fucking tablas!
And it's Chris Potter, who's on tenor sax, and then, of course, Dave Holland on double bass. And they formed from a sextet, I believe. Hussain had assembled a sextet he called Cross Currents, which I've heard about and listened to briefly, which brought together East meets West, so Indian and Western musicians. And we've seen this over time. Ry Cooder's really well known for that as well as, hey man, the great George Harrison, so on and so forth. And so he had this sextet to explore jazz content in Bollywood films. Good Hope expands on that concept by boiling down the group to a trio and shifting the focus from movie music to more a generalized approach. Generalized being jazz, which is good for us. And y'all.
This album is freaking
fucking phenomenal.
Oh my god.
It's recorded pinpoint accurately.
It's very nice. I, again, am a huge percussion fan in every sense.
Yes.
The double performance was...
And I'm a trio fan. For a trio to sound like they're a quad or bigger, these guys do.
This sounds big, and it does sound like there are, for the most part, only 3 in
but they're big.
Yeah, but they bring
their presentation is big.
Yeah, they bring it so much that it's just like
big.
You're listening to a lot going on, but not a lot going on, right?
Again, we love saying this, or I love saying this. It is kind of oxymoronish, right? It's that whole thing where there's only 3 people, but the sound is so big, kind of thing. So Dave Holland ended up with the top billing on this album, which I find funny because they're both equal. All 3 are equally huge. What does it say here? It says one can either put it down merely to alphabetical order by surname or note, typical, or note how central the bass's role is in defining the sound of this trio. And in general, drums and bass. You love percussion, I love bass, and it's They hold it down for everything else. And it gives Hussain the ability to just fly on the tablas everywhere, kind of thing. Or the saxophone to fly, or the bassist to fly, so on and so forth. So, again, it gives the central point is the bassist and his defining role of the sound again. And Good Hope isn't a ragged jazz or East meets West fusion. It's a conversation between sensibilities, with Holland's bass acting as a bridge between Hussain's tablas and Chris Porter's tenor sax. Some of the songs, right off the bat, it's like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah.
I went to Bhai, cause I'm brown. Wait, you are too. That is what I gravitated to immediately. Sevens was good, or Seven, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And then later, Bedouin Trail. That one was a lot more eased back. But the one that I've been listening to the most is, sorry, folks, two actually. Island Feeling, and Good Hope, the title track. Just bright and fills me with good hope and happiness to listen to it. And it's another one of those albums. I can listen to this at different volume levels and gain and glean different bits of information happily at different levels.
This is a very, very nice listen. This is a very easy listen. I haven't yet, but I need to see this man play
live.
Man. Oh my goodness. Like some of the
or this trio.
Just listening of just like how quickly he might be freaking moving his fingers or his hands.
Yeah, or he'll slow it down and he'll trick you.
Yeah.
And then it's
like I've seen some crazy drummers like snare roll, but I want to see how
I want to see the tablas being played by these
I just want to see just like it's like almost like he's not even moving. But something
because he's moving so fast, it looks like blur.
Because like some parts, like you just throw it in there all of a sudden, and it's just like whoa. Which is why I fell in love with that part of the trio's performance. At least I gravitated to it the most. I also love the album cover. It's so freaking clever. I was staring at it for a while. I was just like, this is so well done.
The album cover is pretty cool.
How they added the hope in there.
Yep. So what I didn't know, and this is back to Downbeat magazine, which is still around kind of thing after all these years. I didn't know that Hussain is justifiably the world's most celebrated tabla player.
Oh, so I need to watch this yesterday. Sounds like it, for damn sure.
And again, it's funny because you don't know who gets top billing, because in Downbeat it says, and they're talking about Hussain, and on his new trio album, Good Hope, he plays other percussion instruments as well as the tabla.
What they should have done is each of them should have taken the album and they should have changed same album cover, just change the color, and each person their color is their
flavor for the month.
Their name goes first on this particular color. That way, people would buy all three.
The other thing that I liked about Hussain's playing by Downbeat, what do they say here? In his awesomely skilled hands, these percussive tools expand his palette. Because after all, you can't be a great conversationalist without supplying nuanced replies and colorful commentary, and his hands are the commentary and the nuance. Aside from the other two being just as deviously amazing. I'll just end by saying that I agree with most things written about this album, and I'll add that, Dave holding it down lets the dialogue or the speech between the tablas being played and the tenor to just speak to each other and flow together or separately really well. So those are some of my thoughts on Good Hope by Dave Holland, again, which came out in 2019. Hope you enjoyed too, Mischief. Seemingly you have.
I did.
What are you closing the show with, man?
So my third choice and the last one for all of you today on Talkin All That Jazz, the 2010s, is the Ezra Collective.
Yep.
And the album that I'm going to be talking about is You Can't Steal My Joy. This, the Ezra Collective, is actually a really nice fusion of Afrobeat, hip-hop, and soul, but jazz. So this British jazz quintet, outside of these very talented musicians, the band has also done collaborations with London-based jazz musicians, such as saxophonist Nubia Garcia and drummer Moses Boyd. One thing that was written about this band that I didn't realize that I also fell under the category of, as a listener, of jazz on a whole. So growing up, I would obviously listen to whatever I gravitated to as I got older and older, as you would listen to, your angsty teen years, whatever.
Yeah.
Jazz, in my opinion, growing up, and I didn't realize that I thought about this, that I thought about it this way. I always saw jazz as a stuffy, like chin-stroking, old blokes kind of old men smoking cigars and just enjoying a jazz album, right? To me, that's what jazz always was. Because I thought of it like that, I saw, as me not fitting under that category as a listener, I also felt like jazz was such an elite art form.
Oh, got you.
Right?
It is perceived as that sometimes.
Musically, as a musician, as a listener and lover of music, I felt like I wasn't even, that I couldn't get it, and I didn't even have the right to even try.
Oh, shit.
Right? Because I've always also seen jazz as being, and it has been said, that jazz is a rebellious and very experimental thing. And that's the main part of it that I felt like I couldn't connect with. It was just like, I don't, musically, because...
You don't hear that? Or
I just felt like I felt like I would never understand what the messages were.
Okay.
Right? Obviously, now I see jazz totally differently and realize that also it's just like, in a way, it's just like every other kind of music. You kind of take what you take from it. Now you're seeing it more used in other forms of music.
Now
right?
you're seeing it.
Sorry, yeah. Now I'm seeing it used in, or realizing that it actually has been used as a reference and as influence to inspire other kinds of music, because you see it a lot, especially in hip hop.
Yeah.
Right? You see jazz being used a lot by artists like Kendrick Lamar and or you have Thundercats, right? And you to anyone like saxophonist Kamasi Washington. So yeah, there are a huge variety of artists that have been very busily tapping into jazz's free-willing and experimental nature, and the origins of what jazz was and has become over the years to make newer music.
Give the space to do that.
You Can't Steal My Joy was released in 2019 and is an example, and a perfect example of actually of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're bringing jazz to, again, a mix. This album has a mix of a lot of different genres. So I have mixed feelings about this album.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, it's a wicked album from beginning to end, but I feel like I connect more with the beginning of the album and the end of the album. So the first song... Sorry.
Sometimes, you know what? Sometimes... How long have you been listening to the album?
So...
when did you find the album?
So this is kind of falls under the same category as the Antibalas album. So I kind of came across one or two songs.
Right.
So some of the features on the album are vocal performance, where Georgia Smith on Reason in Disguise, and Loyal Carner on What Am I to Do? Right.
The only reason I asked that, sometimes 3 years later, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I like the mid part of this album right now.
So the way I actually came across this album was because I kind of went through this, let me explore some Georgia Smith tracks. Yeah. So I came across this song. I came across Reason in Disguise, and I fell in love with it. So I decided to check out the entire album.
Right.
So I found the song. I found her song, her featured song, and was like, let me check the rest of the album out. And then I ended up really falling in love with the beginning and the end of the album.
Right.
So it starts off with "Space is the Place." Dalen Jones delivers this wicked performance with this. It's one of those hooks that just hum. Right, just stick with you and you hum along with, and it just easy, like it just plants in your brain, and that's it, right? And for a trumpet performance to do that, it's just like it's a trumpet performance you sing along with.
Yeah, I like that.
And then it goes to this, which I thought it made me giggle a little bit when it came on, but the red wine.
Yeah.
Right. It was almost like a "Take That, UB40."
And "Take That, Neil Diamond."
With regards to UB40, this track is very reggae.
Yeah.
Very reggae compared to most of the tracks.
And I like the take on the wording.
Yeah, right. The way
Whine.
The way they spelled it.
Yeah.
With the H.
Yeah.
Is probably, and like I said, this is the only song that actually feels and has this sound to it, because it's probably the most random track on the entire album, right? But man, they bring that reggae vibe the right way.
Yeah.
Right? Then continuing on the list of great songs on this track, the songs that I really, really connected with, Quest for Coin, which is actually a song about pursuit for money, but not losing yourself in the process.
Back to that again, right?
That one has, those parping horns, and the
parping?
It's just like, it's out there, like they're right in
your
face.
they're Blair, they're
in your face, right?
There's my word for the day, peeps, and I think maybe yours.
Parping. With the syncopated, recall UK grime.
Yeah.
Right. That garage kind of noise,
and it's throwback garagey, yeah.
But the title track, "You Can't Steal My Joy,"
so dope,
amazing. It's this ferocity that just bursts from that brass.
And I agree, man.
Such an energy.
It blaps.
It has such an energy.
The brass blaps. You can hear it, and you're not gonna steal my joy.
It's not parping.
It's not parping, it's blapping.
It's blapping.
Okay.
And the energy that comes out from it is...
Look at us. We've changed even just talking about
And then the reason that I was drawn to the album to begin with was the Reason in Disguise and What Am I To Do, which is right in the middle. After those two performances, it kind of kicks back in with the Ezra Collective focus. And their musicianship with Chris and Jane. They kick back into it, doing what they do best. And the album kind of just ends off with a very communal, kinetic high. With the last song,
Shakara!
Sorry, with the last song, Shakara.
Yeah.
It just ends off very nicely. And You Can't Steal My Joy, the album, not the song. The album is like, it brings joy to new wave.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Jazz and what it has become as itself, and what it has brought to the world.
Through Brits.
Yes.
Through Brits. Right?
This is true.
It's showing off and showcasing British jazz and artists, which I also loved.
Yes. And that was my last album for Talkin All That Jazz.
2010s.
That's 2010 to 2019.
What he said.
Did you start off?
I did start off. I started off with Gregory Porter's "Be Good" from 2012.
Right. Yes, I started off with the Afrobeat, bulletproof Antibalas album. Antibalas.
Then we moved over to D'Angelo's Black Messiah from 2014.
Very heavy, starting song with a powerful message. And then I went to not a remix album, but a Robert Glasper, Miles Davis interpretation, mashup with a lot of really other good fucking artists.
Yeah.
Everything's Beautiful, which also, by the way, has a really dope freaking
album cover. It reminded me of the last Tribe Called Quest album. I ended with a Dave Holland album called Good Hope from 2019. Woo! Tubla Madness. I love that you just did that, Mischief.
I've been trying not to tap on things, but I was like, this is the perfect time. And I ended off with the Ezra Collective, You Can't Steal My Joy, which has a lot of different feels.
And what year was that again?
And this was released in 2019.
Right. We spanned the decade, I think evenly. So yeah, that was Talking All That Jazz, the 2010s edition of Phono Stage with me and I. Being the Brown Bandit, better known as the Bandit.
I'm the Mischievous One, better known as Mischief. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for
Take
joining
care,
us.
guys.
Much love.